Chapter 6.2, Planning Adjustments on a Worksheet. Before we get going here, we want to talk just a little bit about what an adjustment is. An adjustment's basically going to, for this lesson, is going to represent the amount that we used. It's important to know if we buy $500 worth of supplies and then we buy another $500 worth of supplies, one might ask, why are we buying $500 more of supplies? Well, the reason we're buying more is because we use those. So we're going to use the worksheet to ultimately show how much we use. We're buying 500 more because we used 400. So that's kind of the whole premise of today's lesson. So, but before we get going, I want to kind of start off slow, and we're going to start at the ground zero, and I'm going to kind of bring you up to speed with a little hypothetical situation. So, during the fiscal year 2000, we'll say XX or 12 or 13, what's the matter you? Purchased $400 worth of supplies. So our trial balance, if we take a look at that in the supplies account, is going to have a debit balance of 400. Very simple, very, no problems there. We would get that obviously from the ledger. Well, during the fiscal year, what's the matter you used 100. Now the key word here is used $100 worth of supplies. Well, how would we make that look? Well, the first thing we would do is we have to decrease our supplies by 100. Well, supplies is an asset account, has a debit normal balance. So the way that you decrease the supplies is by crediting supplies for 100. And then you're going to have a supplies expense. Because we used supplies, we have an expense. So that's our supplies expense of 100. This is pretty much the premise of this whole lesson. If you can get this, you get the whole lesson here. We used $100 worth of supplies, so we're going to credit supplies 100, debit supplies expense for 100. All right, so let's take a look here. Let's do the same thing, but now let's take a look at, let's just add a little different wording here. So during the fiscal year, once again, we're starting out at what's the matter you, purchased $400 worth of supplies. We got that from the general ledger, and that's what our general ledger balance represents, basically in a T account format. Okay. During the fiscal year, what's the matter you ended. Now in this case, I changed the words. I said we ended with $100 worth of supplies. So, what we have to ask ourselves is, how much supplies did what's the matter use in the fiscal period? Well, if we purchased 400 and we ended with 100, by simple math, we used 300. So that used part is what we're going to record in our adjustments. So we need to make that adjustment and show that we had that $300 worth of supplies expense. So I'm going to open up my supplies expense. An expense has a normal balance of a debit, so we're going to debit that. And we need to decrease our supplies accounts because we no longer have 400, rather we have 100. We need to decrease our supplies accounts by 300. And that'll be our entry. And that's pretty much the premise of it. So let's just take a look at a transaction. If we take a look on what we have here is we have our Roseville rental worksheet, very similar to what you saw from the last lesson. Our adjustment information is this. We have the supplies on hand 300. Okay, so they're telling us that at the end of the fiscal period we only had $300 worth of supplies left. So we need to calculate how much did we use in supplies for that fiscal period. So what we're going to do is this. We want to take a look. Okay, what's our trial balance for the supplies account? In this case, the trial balance for a supplies account has a debit balance of $580. Now we want to go, okay, well, what do we have at the end of the month? Well, directions tell us at the end of the month we have a debit balance of $300. So now what we're going to do is we need to find the adjustment, or in this case, the amount used. Well, in order to find the adjustment or the amount used, we're going to calculate the difference. 580 minus 5, if we start with 580, we're going to end with 300, both on a debit balance. That means we're going to have a credit of 280, because that credit will decrease our supplies down to the 300 that we need. So we know how much we used. So now what we have to do is we basically have to just take that and enter it in the adjustment column. Remember Luca Pacioli and the double entry accounting? We're going to have 2 entries, and our first entry is to me is the easiest way. It comes out the same. Some may ask you to put the debit first, but this is the easiest way for me. I know that I have to decrease my supplies account by $280. So I'm going to credit supplies, and then I know that I used, and that keyword used is that red flag that goes off in my brain that goes, hey, guess what? That's an expense, so I'm going to have a $280 expense. Do my debits equal my credits? They absolutely do. Am I done with this problem? Absolutely I am. So let's take a look at the next one. We're going to look at the value of the prepaid insurance. Okay, so what's my trial balance of my prepaid insurance? In this example, it's $800. So we have a trial balance of $800. Once again, I'm getting that information from the trial balance comes from my ledgers. All right, so that comes from my ledgers. So that's how I got that trial balance information, in case you're curious. All right, what do I have at the end of the month? Well, I have a debit balance of $600. So, if I started with $800, I ended with $600, how much did I use? How much prepaid insurance did I use? Well, in this case, I used $200. I'm going to credit it $200 because that will decrease my balance of prepaid insurance to the $600. So I'm going to credit it $200. So, I know that I used $200 worth of prepaid insurance. So, since I used it and I need to decrease my prepaid insurance, I'm going to enter the credit there. And once again, that little red flag goes off. Oh, wait, I used this. So, since I used it, therefore it has to be an expense, and I have an expense of $200, so I'm going to debit insurance expense. And that's how you calculate the adjustments, but I'm still not done yet. What I want to do here is I need to make sure I did everything correctly, and it's always important to prove and rule. So there comes my single line on here. And my single lines tell me that it's either addition or subtraction. In this case, it's addition. I'm going to add my debit column. In this case, I get $480. And in this case, on the add my credit column, I will get $480 as well. My debits equal my credits, so I did it correctly. Now I will draw my world famous double line underneath it, and therefore I have verified my totals that they are accurate. And that is how you record adjustments. The key thing is, and just remember this, on adjustments, make sure that the adjustments are not the value of the assets at the end of the month. They are the amount used. The adjustment columns for this lesson are the value of the amount used of the assets.